obviously it's not possible for us to do any justice to this everlasting life of Jannah and Jahannam in an hour's lecture. However, what we at least can take from this lecture is the rationale behind Jannah and Jahannam, or the logic behind Jannah and Jahannam, and to perceive it how it is, and to place it in the context of all the actions and reactions that we are performing here today, and their due results and their due consequences of them, not only in this life that we are tasting it, but we will be tasting it also in the coming life. So I will just try to place Jannah and Jahannam in the perspective of intellect and rational and logic, and second, place it within the context of our actions and reactions of this life, our choiceful, willful actions and reactions of this life. In this life, the consequences of our actions we see them immediately. Most of our actions and reactions, the consequences of them, we see it immediately. Some of them, they come face to face with us eventually. And some come to us face to face without us even perceiving, without us even calculating, or even after we have forgotten, they come to us. And they all are the cause and effect of our actions. I.e., you did this, and then eventually this happened. So if your action or reaction didn't exist, then that action and that reaction would not have also come forth towards you. So these are called consequences. There's something else called results. You plan something for a result. Not necessarily they are the consequences. For example, you plan to get up on the bus and to go to university or to go to work, or to get up on the train. You plan that. Eventually you go to the destination of whether it be the university or whether it be the work. That's result. Not necessarily consequences. Consequence is negative. Results are positive. Consequences, for example, you shouted at someone then saw back at you. That's consequences. Then you have something called fruits in this life. So you go to university in order for you to get a degree, and then ultimately for you to get a good job accordingly, or to get a profession accordingly. You eventually get it, and you eventually have passion therein, and you find contentment therein. That's a result and a fruit. You've got to attain something which you can call it a fruit, which is your ultimate goal. Someone, they get on the train, every day they go to the work. At the end of the month they get a wage. That's the fruit. It's not simply a result. So in this life we have, in terms of our actions, we have consequences, and then we have results, and then we have fruits. Opposite of them, opposite of these three, we have something called pain, agony, stress, pressure, depression, sadness, grief. And even the last one is torture. They are all in this life also. They are all in this life. So for example, the consequences can lead you to pain. Someone can then injure you in that argument and you may have pain. The results eventually may give you sadness and sorrow. And opposite fruits, if you don't attain it, it may even give you depression. And if you go beyond that, beyond depression, it may even give you humiliation and torture. This is part and parcel of cycle of this life. No one can escape it. No one can escape it. So if I was to ask you, what is the worst thing that you fear in this life? The worst thing. What do you fear? Is it death? Some people will say, I'd rather die than go through this. What is this? We all will agree this will equal to humiliation or torture. We all will agree if someone was to pose us the question, would you rather die or would you go through humiliation and torture? We'd say we'd rather die than go through humiliation and torture. So, the worst thing in this life, rationally and logically, practically, physically, in a tangible manner, is humiliation and torture. We all come to a consensus and agreement, unanimous agreement, that the worst is humiliation and torture. Logically, rationally, practically, physically, in a tangible manner. No one will disagree in this matter. Now, in this life, there's so much one can humiliate you. There's so much one can torture you. You will eventually what? Die. Or they will die. One way or the other. Thereby, again, rationally, logically, in tangible manner, there's only so much they can humiliate you and torture you. Or there's only so much you can humiliate them and torture them. Eventually it has to end. Eventually they will die or you will die. So death comes in between the humiliation and torture. So whatever humiliation and torture one goes through for the right reason or the wrong reasons, something comes and ends it. And that's death. Now the logical, rational question is, what if then, if there was a place where there's no death? It's a logical question. What if then, there's a place where there's no death? So then I can torture that individual for eternity. Or they can torture me for eternity. Or I can be humiliated for eternity, or they can be humiliated for eternity. On the opposite angle, what if then there was no death and I can attain the fruits for eternity, the pleasures and delights for eternity? It's a logical question. So then this logical question then leads us to the issue of Jannah and Jahannam.